back to another video feature of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. I'm inside Caesar's Forum Shops, and I thought today would be a good opportunity to talk about photography and videography as it relates to creating these videos for you. So this is my video tour focused on video and photography itself. Okay, so I am just looking over some footage, and you see I was at the Venetian. And I thought I'd try to give you like a sense of perspective on how I've been managing these different cameras. So I will share some of the equipment here, and let me turn on. I'm actually trying to manage right now. Let's see if that's going to work. Okay, I'm getting some weird light here. I have the iPad as well because I'm trying to record all this as I'm talking about it. I don't even know if this is going to work, so let's give it a shot. I just have my little mini tripod. Well, actually, let me talk about first. Let me talk about the camera I'm using. So this is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. What's cool about this is I can use interchangeable lenses. So I have a macro lens as well as this lens. One of the things that is really touted about it is it has a appearance that is more like cinematic or film-like in nature. And so far I've found it's pretty incredible to use. Still learning some of the features and so forth, so that's, you know, a bit of a challenge, but it's just something I get to test in the field. Now, one of the things, let me turn the camera around, and I'm trying to see, I'm not going to be able to focus this. It's just barely, okay, hold on. I think it's just like barely being propped up by my really flimsy tripod. So, okay, it might be shaking a little bit. Yeah, so like one of the things that people have written about in terms of the Blackmagic camera has been the battery life. And so what I did was I got this juice box battery, and you basically charge it, and it has shoe mounts and stuff of different sizes, so you can mount it on a rig if you want. I don't really have a rig for the camera. I'm trying to use it like for a run and gun situation, as they call it, and so I'm not doing a lot of I don't really want to think about a rig yet. So anyway, what I ended up doing was I have a bag, so I have a camera bag, and I stick this in my camera bag, and I ended up buying an adapter just on Amazon for like, it was under 10 bucks, and it's like a really long cord. And so the idea is that I take this cord from the output, and I stick it to the cord that came with the camera. This goes into the Blackmagic in the port, and then it gives me as much juice as I want for, I've never even tested the limits of this, but some people get 7-8 hours out of this. And it's a little bit spendy, but it's worth it, I think, as opposed to buying batteries for the Blackmagic. The batteries do definitely go pretty fast, but that being said, like when I was doing a lot of this shooting in Vegas, I'm seeing the camera's kind of flipping up and down, so I apologize for that, but when I was doing some of the shooting in Vegas this week, in August of 2017 here, one of the things I noticed was that I could go out and shoot for like an hour, just do little clips here and there, come back to my room, charge the battery up in the camera, and I would be fine. But I usually take this battery pack out just in case. Now the other thing I'm doing with the Blackmagic camera is I got this monopod. It's not, you know, I wanted to get a compact one because I wanted to be able to fit in my camera pack, and so it extends fairly, you know, like any monopod, right? Pretty good length as far as the extension. It's compact, and it is pretty steady. It's not, you know, the top of the line or anything like that, but I wanted something that was, ideally I wanted even an inch or so smaller, just because I wanted to fit it in my pack. But this fits fine, has a cap on the top, and you know, I just stick the Blackmagic on there, and it's been working pretty well. I shot some stuff with the Bellagio using this that was, I mean, I'll have to check it out as far as the quality of the footage, but I think that in general this has been pretty effective and useful doing what I've been doing out, say, on the Strip and stuff. A lot of the applications of what I'm trying to do is geared at the run and gun stuff. I'm not trying to do a lot of setup. A lot of times it's spontaneous, and so I just have to base it on what can I use most effectively in the field. Now in the past I've used a camcorder and then a still camera, and I've since decided to move away from that, so I'll talk about that in a second. Now as far as audio, the other thing that people tell you about with the Blackmagic is the external mic. The mic that's featured there is not high quality. I found that's the case with most cameras. I'll talk about it later with the GoPro. With the GoPro, I'm not a big fan of the external mic, so no matter what you're doing, I think you're probably going to use some kind of external mic. So right now I have this clip-on. This was a pretty cheap option I got from just on Amazon. And if you're curious about any of the brands, you could like email me or post a comment here on YouTube. But yeah, so I'm using that now. It seems to work fine. I'm running that directly into the Blackmagic for the audio. We'll see how that comes out in post-production. But one of the things I've been using pretty extensively now is the Zoom H4n Pro. And I heard some actually negative reviews, just some friends who made some comments about they weren't impressed with the quality. I've had the opposite. I think it's been excellent. So what it features is you can do up to 4 tracks. It has phantom power on it, so I typically will use this in the studio. I have some pretty good Blue microphones. I can run those in stereo. I can do one, run it in mono, dual mono, whatever I want to do. I can also, right now if I wanted to, I could plug this microphone into the back and I could use that. It has a mount for, you know, a rig, whatever you want to put it on. You can put it on a microphone stand, obviously. You could use the external mics too. These are really good. The other thing that's, I think, really cool is it functions as an input, or rather an audio interface for your computer. So I just plug it in, it hooks through USB. I can set it at 44.1, 48.1 kilohertz, and I use it then with my Blue microphone, excuse me, to do audio voiceovers for these videos. So this has been kind of new using in my arsenal, and I've been really happy with it so far. I've used it in a few cases in the field, doing the audio, thinking it would be good to have high quality audio with the video that I shoot. But on this Las Vegas trip, I thought, you know, I'm just going to use the audio built in on the devices, mainly on the iPhone 7, which I'm going to be talking about. I do so much voiceover after the fact that I feel like it's not really necessary to go for this high quality, so I actually haven't used it once on this trip, but I brought it just in case. Maybe before I talk about the iPhone, I'll get to the GoPro. So, you know, I've had a GoPro for years and been using it, and one of the things I don't like about the GoPro, and I think the new one has built-in stabilization. So this is the Hero 4 Silver, and I've been, you know, pretty pleased with the quality of it. Tonight I'm hoping to go shoot some time lapse on the Strip when it gets dark to see how that looks. I haven't done a lot of time lapse with it, but I want to try that out. But my concern was this. I said a lot of times I'm taking footage and it's really shaky footage. It just doesn't look good because of lack of built-in stabilization. So some time ago I invested in this Louvre stabilizer, and just showing both cameras in case one doesn't work so great. And this was one of these Kickstarter projects, and it took a while for them to produce it, and they changed it over time. I should say, actually, there's different names for this. This is the mechanical one that is battery powered, and I'll show you how that works in a second. I've been using that a lot, and so far I'm happy with the results. But they have this other device, like a traditional stabilizer, that goes on as well, and it adds another axis to what you already have. And for me, I decided that was overkill, so I decided not to do it. Actually, we're getting some, let me close the shades. Maybe you can tell here, I'm in front of the Aria, and we're getting massive sunlight, so let's try to close that. Okay, I moved the angle of the Blackmagic camera down a little bit. I'm not sure if the angle is quite right. We'll determine that in post-production. You know, often what happens is it'd be nice if I situated the mic before talking, but what happens is you sometimes realize that the footage that you shot isn't as great as you thought, and so you have to like compensate. That happened to me a lot with the Blackmagic. I was at the Museum of Capitalism in Oakland, and I just hadn't figured out the exposure on the camera out, and so as a result, I totally overexposed my footage and had to compensate in post-production. It didn't look great, but that kind of stuff happens. So for me, I like the idea of having redundancy when I'm doing these field videos or still photography. I never know what I'm going to say after the fact. I kind of planned some stuff out. I have a, I can't find it right now, but just a small notebook, and I take that and I write some notes about what shots I want to do and the themes of the shots and so forth, and then I try to take it from there. But a lot of spontaneity, I think, happens, is common just because of when you're shooting stuff like this, you never know exactly what you're going to need, and some new stuff you see, and then all of a sudden you decide to do a new maybe video shoot or photography shoot. So I was talking about the stabilizer, and I got this, and let me turn it on and show you how it works here. Powered up. So you can see it's fully powered. That shot in that camera. And I don't have this actually turned on. So the particular mode it's in now, it won't do any tilting. And it does allow the side-by-side. And you see the whole point of this gimbal is the fluidity of it, right? So anytime you move the device, the camera, the GoPro, it's going to keep it stable. Now what I can do is press it twice. Let's see. And now it allows me to go up and down pan. So like I can get the ceiling and so forth. So this has been really useful for me. Louvre sells this on their website. I joined it, you know, when it was a Kickstarter project. It comes with this handheld grip, which is pretty high quality, and the stabilizer. The stabilizer uses 2 of these batteries, actually rechargeable, and you know, so far it's been pretty wonderful. So I can take it on the Strip, I took it on Fremont, I can do the run and gun stuff that is easier with this size of camera compared to the Blackmagic. The other thing, of course, the Blackmagic is it doesn't have stabilization, so I'm stuck using the monopod. There are, you know, situations where you could mount a camera like the Blackmagic using, and I didn't bring it with me, Louvre has another device that has weights, and it's really complicated. You have to spend a lot of time, you know, mounting the thing and figuring out the weights and going back and adding counterweights and all this kind of stuff. The fact that this is electronic and uses you know, electronic stabilization like this, it's just fluid and, you know, I think just really impressive. So I've been really happy with this. I'm hoping now my GoPro footage will be a lot smoother and more bearable to watch. I mean, it's kind of interesting because there's a ton of low quality footage out there. I'm doing currently a sabbatical project, finishing it up from the last quarter where I teach, and I'm talking a lot about this very stuff here, trying to get into how I create these videos. And one of the things you notice on YouTube is that there's a ton of bad footage, and so I think in a sense we have a tolerance for that maybe, and so in some cases we don't mind, I guess, if you see shaky footage. So I will turn off the gimbal. Okay, and yeah, it's off now. So very, very, very handy. Now the other GoPro related thing is, and I haven't had a chance to use this, is this track. And this I was thinking primarily would be for, let me turn it on for you to see. Choose speeds here. The idea behind this would be primarily used for saying time lapse. I've been doing some like footage actually for these home delivery cooking services of all things. I'll be having on my YouTube channels. I've been trying those out on my YouTube channel. So I decided to mount the GoPro on this. It has a head here, and then the idea behind it is that the track moves. You can choose the speed, and then I have to hit the button and it moves as such. And you can actually get extra track if you want This one you could mount a smartphone on, it would work. The other thing I can do is I could mount it vertically if I wanted to, or I could do like an angle like this. And so it could lend itself for some interesting time lapse. I don't think I'm going to try this out on the strip. I just don't feel comfortable with it. You know, it's just so noisy and kind of crazy, and it could get banged around along with my camera. But it would be cool, I think, if I was doing some studio stuff at home to try this out, to use it, to see the potential for it. And again, I would primarily use this for the GoPro. So it's another gadget I brought along, but I have to say I haven't used it yet. And this is about, they sell them for about $100 on Amazon. I found it. It was actually a Prime special they had going. So I've been pretty happy with it so far. I just haven't used it like in a field setting per se. Now, let me talk about then the primary camera I've been using. So I've been using the iPhone 7. Kind of a long story. I used to use a track phone, and I wanted to just like have everything centralized, and so I decided to buy an iPhone, as did my wife. And I got the 7 primarily because it has the more advanced camera. It actually has a dual camera, so you can do some interesting things with it. And I've been using it, like I use a lot of the different functions. So I use the photo setting, just the generic photo setting, also the portrait photo setting, which does this depth effect. Definitely use the panorama when I can. What else? Slow-mo, time-lapse. And then I ended up getting an app, ProCam, which is really powerful. I think it was only like $4.99. And this thing actually, you choose whether you want to shoot in video, night mode, burst mode, time-lapse, photo, slow shutter, or 3D photo. And 3D photo has actually been kind of interesting, and I'll feature those in some upcoming videos, so you can check that out. Actually, at one point I discovered during my trip that I was shooting in the wrong mode. I was shooting in 4:3, not 1:1. So some of my photos might look a little off, but I'm not sure. We'll have to see how that works out. So the principle behind this was I thought it would be easier in most field settings to use this to shoot something than a traditional DSLR, which I've had a Sony for years. It does video, not video as great as this. This can do 4K and up to 30 frames per second at 4K, so really quite good. The images so far have been really good from it. I have a pretty big, pretty large amount of storage, so I can put a ton of photos. I can of course come back to the room if I want to, download those photos. Really easy to do. But I think the main thing for me is that if you have anything like this, right, inside a casino, a lot of the places I shoot are places like casinos or theme parks, or if I had an audio recorder, or imagine walking around with my battery pack, and I've used it in some cases, having a cord sticking out of my bag. It just looks a little strange and could, I don't want to say raise suspicion, but I think using the iPhone 7, A, it has really good quality, B, it does everything. So a lot of times if I'm in the field, I'm like looking stuff up. Like I was at the MGM today, and I said, oh, there's this new bar there / sports experience place, and I said, oh, I want to check out something about this. So I just go on the phone, of course, connect through their Wi-Fi, and then I can easily look up what the place is all about. Yeah, so what I think I like about using this is it's less conspicuous than other cameras I might use in the field. So far I think it's been better than my DSLR. It's also easy just to pull out, you click it on, you do your password, and then you're immediately at the app, and then, or whatever app you want to use. Obviously there's so many camera apps. A lot of them are really sophisticated. They do grid lines for you. You can do manual settings. This one really approximates a DSLR. I generally do the auto settings just to be practical and efficient when I'm in the field. So far this has been really pretty revolutionary for what I'm doing, because I can choose to do things very quickly. It's small. It allows me to, as I said, use it for other features like looking up information about the places that I'm shooting videos on. So it's pretty useful. So I don't miss the DSLR. I think it was always hard carrying it. That's the other thing about an iPhone, is it's very compact, so it's easy to plug in if you need to recharge it. The battery actually is pretty good so far. I mean, I did run out today, but I was out there for 4 to 5 hours doing nonstop shooting, talking on the phone, doing video, whatever. So it was draining a lot. Plus, I had the Wi-Fi going. Didn't have Bluetooth, but the battery life has been good so far. But you know, definitely, you could, if you test it, you could run out of juice pretty fast. The other thing I'm going to try to do, let me move the Blackmagic back around, which is good because this tripod is not designed for this camera. So what I wanted to show you was just if I can show you on this footage here, I also wear a mountable camera, and so you might see, like right at the corner here, I think you're going to see the gimbal I was just using, yeah, right up there. It's kind of popping in the frame. I think I have another shot of it here somewhere. Yeah, well, it's kind of, hold on. Okay, you'll see it just on the right here, right? So I'm using, that's the GoPro, the Louvre gimbal rather, with the GoPro at the Venetian shooting this footage. So I started wearing this wearable camera because I thought, you know, like particularly for doing, say, you see it right there, really good shot of it in action. What I thought was that if I was wearing also a wearable camera that shot video, I could, you know, show some footage to you like this, which is almost kind of meta-like, right? We're getting into what's actually happening when I'm shooting footage in a field setting. So let me see if I can focus this a little bit better. There we go. Wow, way better. There's my hand. So yeah, I was just showing you, and I'm just showing on my laptop here, basically. This is all spontaneous. I haven't really planned any of this, but you can see the gimbal that I'm using it to pan up and down. I'm getting all this footage inside the Venetian. Not doing any voiceover at this moment, and I think there I'm just setting it down and probably taking some stills, and we can pause that. So, you know, for me, having a variety of cameras is useful because, again, it allows me to decide later on what I want to edit. If I have a lot of footage, I don't have to save all that. I can save some of my stuff to Flickr, the still images, and then I try to archive as much as I can to video. Of course, the problem with the Blackmagic is that the files are pretty large just because I'm shooting at ProRes HQ. So it's pretty consuming as far as just the amount of space that is involved. So yeah, so this was my feature, trying to talk a little bit about some of the footage. I will, I think here, maybe leave it open so I can add just some shots, additional shots later of some of the different cameras and what it looked like. So you can just watch for that in a little bit here. So. Okay, one additional thing I wanted to talk about is that when you're on the road and you're doing a lot of photography and video, you're thinking about charging batteries or charging battery packs, whatever you have. So one of the things I recommend is one of these multi-port USB chargers, 6 ports. You can plug in all your devices, the mini USB, like for my rechargeables, for the stabilizer. You could plug in the larger size USB, which some cameras use. You can also, of course, plug in the cables for iPads and iPhones. One of the things I will say about the iPhone, it has a pretty amazing battery life. So that is, you know, really great actually if you're doing a lot of photography. For my Blackmagic, I have to bring my own. If I want to use the internal battery, that the plug-in battery, I have to bring my own charger for that. So these are just some things to remember when you're traveling. You have to often have a lot of batteries and battery packs and chargers. So here's a little bit of commentary from the Vegas Strip. Okay, so we're going down the escalator here in front of the Cromwell, which I'm going to check out. But I wanted to just mention that, part of what I've been doing on this research trip in 2017 to the Vegas Strip, as you see Paris behind us, is to rethink how I approach the photography, the still photography and the videography. So I will be featuring a lot of the video I shot here in this video today. Okay, so we'll review some of the footage. I've shot them on different devices. The left is an old Sony camcorder. You could see the color. It actually went to still there, but the color isn't that great. The video on the right is the iPhone 7, and I think it has pretty good quality. You can shoot up to 4K, 30 frames per second, even up to 60 if you get a different app. Now, in terms of stabilization, the left is the GoPro with the stabilizer I talked about at the Venetian. The right is the old footage with the GoPro no stabilizer. Quite a substantial difference, as you can tell, right? I mean, it's so shaky on the right. The quality of the image is about the same, and it should be. But the actual stabilization you see makes a huge difference there in the shot on the left. Now, to review, I'm using the Louvre stabilizer. Here's some of my footage using it on Fremont Street. And again, this is the GoPro on top of it. So it's really smooth. If you look at just the up and down, I can set it on that function I talked about earlier where I can pan up and down, have free floating movement with the gimbal. Now, the only thing I'm noticing is when you see I'm going to do turns, like for me, there's a visual thing going on. And I don't know if it's me being picky, but there's just something that my eyes see when the camera moves, right? There's just something that is, I don't want to say off, but that just seems like a bit of a distortion. And I don't know if that's just something going on with the stabilization. Not getting too much of that when you pan up, but as you're walking and you do a left or right pan, to me there's just something that's not quite, yeah, see right there. I don't know if you're noticing that. So I'd be curious if you've used stabilization with the GoPro, if you've encountered this. Let me know in the comments, because it's something definitely to think about if there's anything I can do. It could be the compression with the video, the frame rate. I'm not sure what is going on. But I will say this. If you go back to that video from the Venetian, the shaky GoPro, it's a major difference. And again, the nice thing about a GoPro is that near 180-degree angle, that super wide angle that you get. If you're doing portrait stuff, if you're doing interview recording, again, you're going to get a fisheye effect, and it's almost not good for that. You could do a fisheye filter, which is really easy in Final Cut or something like that. But to me, it's made for this kind of footage. And I think in the future, if I'm doing any run and gun shooting, if I'm shooting landscapes, if I'm trying to get scenes of showing you what a space is like, in this case like Fremont Street, you can see everything and it's really smooth footage. So I think that this is going to be my go-to, using the Louvre stabilizer. I'm impressed with it. It's easy to use. It's not a big deal to pull it out of the bag, to quickly turn it on, to get the footage, and it's just, I think, a pretty effective means of shooting this kind of footage like we see here on Fremont Street in Las Vegas. Now, earlier I mentioned with the GoPro I had this track system that I've used particularly for time-lapse video, so I wanted to show you a little bit of that here, what that's like. The context here, I was trying to shoot some video totally unrelated to immersion and theming of home food delivery services. And so I set the track up, I put the GoPro on top, I put it for a 1 to 2 second time lapse, and you're going to see the result here. So you get this effect of this quick video, and it has as you can see, a side to side, a lateral movement. So yeah, it's smooth for sure. It's, I think, a little distracting to look at, but it kind of does the trick. So if you're shooting subjects like this in a confined space, you could do it with some landscapes. I've seen some cool stuff with it, but for me it would be for shooting small objects, things in a studio setting, and I think you could get some really interesting things, particularly with the time-lapse footage, as you can see here. So that's a sample of that. Now next is the Blackmagic. I wanted to show you some footage of it, what it looks like. So the first image here, and what we're seeing is, and it's a lot of shaky, unedited footage, but there was a big arrest on the Strip when I was there one night. Friday night, and I took a lot of footage, and no one quite knew what was going on, who was being arrested or what they were being arrested for. So anyway, took some footage, and basically what I want to show you here was just the raw footage. And in this case, what you're seeing is no color coding and no exposure correction. So I'm still trying to dial in the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, but so far I've been really impressed. I mean, you can look at just the definition here of the sky with the hat. You can kind of see his whole, just, you know, the back of his neck and everything. The color's really nice. It's very vivid. It has a much different look than video. Now the next one here is I did a LUT on this, a lookup table. I think it was just the Blackmagic lookup table in one of my color correction programs. So it's a little different. Again, I want to go in and fine tune this, the exposure and everything. But what's really cool about the Blackmagic is that it does give a look that's quite different and distinct because of its sensors. And I read this when I was thinking about getting one. People said, you know, this film setting, it looks so much different than a camcorder or a video shot on an iPhone. If you see some of my iPhone footage, I would say the video, the color is very vivid, but it looks like video. It kind of has an artificial look. And what I like about the Blackmagic is it just has this really nice cinematic look to it. And I know that's kind of vague, but if you just look at some of the footage here, I think you can see it looks a lot different compared in the video to some of my other footage. So I've been really happy with it. The downside of the Blackmagic is it's harder to use. If you want to run and gun, I found that it's not easy to use without, you know, like a tripod or a monopod. There's some good footage coming up here. I recall this guy's beard and his eye, I think in a second, if I'm recalling this. Again, I haven't edited any of this. I just wanted to throw it up for you to see it. So if you go online and look up, just Google Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera, BMPCC, you see a lot of really wonderful footage, and certainly people more skilled than I am doing the color correction and the shooting, but it's a learning process. It's going to take me a while to learn this, but essentially I've jettisoned the old Sony camcorder. I'm done with that. I'm using the Blackmagic. The only thing I have to keep in mind when I shoot is to really think about keeping the image stable. There's no stabilization on it, which is fine because I think stabilization can distort things a bit. I've discovered on some cameras and phones. So you have to use a monopod or a tripod to do the shooting because it does start to look really jerky when you're just trying to do it holding it in your hand and stuff. And that's an issue probably with most footage that you're shooting, trying to get that, you know, steadiness. But you can see it's really nice in terms of the depth. You can see that we have some of the subjects here in the foreground. They're nicely, you know, in focus, and then background you could see that they are out of focus. So you can do some really nice things with manual focus. I was trying to like get some cool shots of people's phones and the images they were capturing. I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of videos, or, you know, videos of screens taking videos, but of course people weren't holding them steady, and I couldn't really focus in and capture that, but you kind of get the idea of it. And but yeah, just overall I'm really pleased with the Blackmagic and what it offers. So next I wanted to show you two still shots to do a still shot comparison. The first one will be my old Sony camera, NEX6. The second one will be using the iPhone 7 and its built-in photo features. Okay, so here is the first shot, and I'm not a pro photographer or anything like that, so you know, you can see with my photography, I'm trying to get decent shots, but I want them to be used often in either a publication or a video. So that first shot was the Sony NEX6. This is the iPhone, and I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the colors. This is a shot of Bliss Dancer at the park near across from the MGM and by the what's going to be the old Monte Carlo. So I think pretty impressive photography overall with the iPhone. So again, I will probably maintain it for still photography. I may end up getting a still camera. I'm not sure. I just have to consider that, because again, whatever is practical for me often works the best in a field setting.
Hope you enjoyed the video feature today here on photography and videography at Caesar's very famous forum shops. Please come back for additional video features of the Immersive World's Handbook.